All right, good morning, everyone. We are live right now. This is Nithin Ramachandra from the Nithin Sports Rush, back with another episode. Man, first of all, I hope everyone had a great Memorial Day weekend. We are already at the midweek on the new week, Wednesday. But before I introduce today's guest, he is a former NFL linebacker. He played for the Buffalo Bills, Carolina Panthers, Ravens, Washington Redskins, now the Commanders, Cardinals, Raiders. He was undrafted. He went to college for California. He had an underrated career. In my opinion, he was a dog on the field. One of the best linebackers to play too. He was a two-time Pro Bowl, second team All-Pro in 2016, and a second team All Pac-10 in 2004. Like I said, he was undrafted, but now he had a great career, and now he's doing big things off the field. He does some coaching for the kids, training for the young kids, the youth camps, football camps, and he has a website we'll get to too. So we'll get to all of his off the field thing, training with the kids and coaching, and it's unbelievable what he does off the field after his career. And I'm glad to connect with him. And Lorenzo, his name is Lorenzo Alexander. Thank you for coming on the show. Truly appreciate it. But I've been following you for a long time, and I'm well connected into the business. Know a lot of athletes, and I came upon your page, and like I said, I watched you play growing up, and like I said, great career. But you're doing great stuff for the kids, which we'll get to. But thank you for joining, and welcome to the family.
Yeah, appreciate you having me on this morning.
Yeah, thank you. So before we get to your career, I want to talk about that picture. One picture you had the firefighter hat on. I want to get to that story. And actually, I have a similar story. One of my friends, his name is Ed. He's a big New York Giant fan, and Justin Tuck wore his helmet actually out of the tunnel for one of the games. Yeah, I don't know if you saw that, but that's my friend Ed's helmet. So I want to talk about your story. How did that come about, wearing the firefighter hat?
Well, just being in the Virginia area, being out in the community, I've met a lot of great firefighters in that area, and I had an opportunity to go over to a firehouse that was kind of in that Lansdowne, Ashburn area. Got an opportunity to train with them, go through some of their drills, go up into the fire truck, and it was just a really cool experience to be able to partake in that, right? Obviously, the fire department, the police department, the military, those type of units are very similar to professional athletes. So being able to go over in their space and kind of hang out and see how they operate, what their culture was, how they communicate, was just a really cool experience for me while I played, to see if I could bring any of that back to the locker room or any of the leadership roles that I had. And so with that, when we started celebrating 9/11 and running out before games, always wanted to bring those men's and women's courage and the things that they did on that day out there onto the field with us in celebration, just to honor what they did and the people that ran into the tragedy while others were trying to get away from it. And so that's really the story behind it, and just having personal relationships with different people that served on that day at the highest level.
Yeah, so for you, like, how special was that just for you to wear that helmet, running out of the tunnel in one of those games, and that was when you were at the Buffalo Bills. But how special was that just to represent that and helping them and helping out the community and obviously the people who serve too?
Yeah, really cool. I did it multiple, I think, years, and obviously the one when I was in Buffalo, I guess, got the most publicity behind it. But it was just a really cool thing, when you know people and they're giving you something, honoring you because they see characteristics and how you live your life that match their ethos, is a huge honor. And so it was just really cool to be able to represent those men and women, and in remembrance of people that ran towards the tragedies I said, not just at the buildings in New York, but at the Pentagon and in the different places around the country that were also in a sense of emergency that day as well. It was just a huge honor at the end of the day.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, I love stories like that, and like I said, Justin Tuck did that for my friend, and for him to wear the helmet, it's truly special to see that. And but let's talk about Lorenzo Alexander. How did he get into football? You were born in Oakland, California, and you grew up there. So what was it like growing up there, and how did you get into football?
So I'm somewhat of a coach's kid. When I was growing up, my uncle played a significant role in my life as a father figure, and he was a high school football coach. And so I took the lead from him. I was a 49ers fan growing up. He also coached at St. Mary's High School, where I ended up going to high school as well. And so I was always around the game, whether it was going up to his practices, going to a Niners game, and then I had a really good friend when I got to high school. He was actually Ricky Henderson's godson, and so we used to always get tickets to the Raiders games and go with him and his dad. So I've always been around the game, always loved the game. I couldn't play football until I got to high school. I was just a bigger kid, and back then they had weight limits, and they didn't have all these, kind of different opportunities for you to get into the game, with whether it's flag or a modified type league, where I could have been able to play the game with kids my age. And so with that, I had to work while I wait. So I was a multi-sport athlete. I played hoop, I played basketball, tried soccer, wasn't great at that. So those were my two mainstays until I got to high school and was able to get on the football field and really just start learning and growing and really utilizing that athleticism and that I got from those other sports to really make a name and mark for myself, under the tutelage of some of the seniors that were really good. We had a couple of guys go D1, Jafar Williams, Pocky Gordon, Eddie Smith, Matt Hamilstein, just guys that were ahead of me, to really learn from those guys and really see how do you become a great player in high school. And I also was very fortunate enough to be around some top end guys, because when I was in high school, I got invited to this camp called Next Level Training Camp, and it was ran by Thomas Weatherspoon, who used to run combines, very similar to Exos and Marshall Stagan in his own regard. Thomas was out in the Bay Area and was doing big things and had first rounders every single year. And I was around those type of guys like a Lamont Thomas or a Tart Glenn, Andre Carter. And this is when I was in high school. I was 16 and I was training with these guys. And so, when you look back and you see what I was able to be around and get glimpses of what greatness looked like, it really allowed me, when I matured mentally, and to be able to implement those things that I saw from those men, to be able to, produce a 15-year career. And it was really obviously me maturing and me actually doing the work, but it was a lot of people that showed me what it was supposed to look like.
Yeah, speaking of those camps, and for you, for getting the opportunity to learn from the best and learning from those camps, how did that, what was that like for you? How grateful were you to be part of those camps to help you get to the football player that you were for 15 years in the league, and also playing multi-sports, which is big now. Kids play multi-sports. I'm sure you tell them all the time about playing multiple
Right.
sports, but what was it like that for you, just to be part of camps when you were playing football?
I was extremely grateful, and this was like a year-round training camp. Essentially, is what it was. It wasn't like these different one-offs, and so I really built a relationship with Thomas and Amanette, who was the massage therapist at the time, and really kind of introduced me to how do you take care of your body. But if you know anything about youth sports, that stuff is very expensive, and even back then, I could not afford to pay Thomas. And so he actually took it upon himself to sponsor me, allow me to train for free. And my job was to do it, to show up every single day, right? Because I think sometimes you get stuff away for free, people say, well, I didn't pay for it, so I don't have to show up. So I had to show up every day, and then when I showed up, I had to put the work in every single day wholeheartedly, as if I had invested, as if I had skin in the game. And so when he did that for me, that was really cool, and it gave me a lot of exposure, a lot of relationships that I lean on still today. And so I was grateful, really having that attitude of gratitude, and I think really was the springboard for me being so involved in the community and trying to provide a similar experience for kids through, free youth camps when I played, and now as I transition and, to post-career, building a business out of it, but still carving out a space to where when I identify kids that remind me of myself and I see greatness in them and they just need a little extra support, providing that for them as well. So it was, I think, life-changing in a lot of ways, and really at the core of who I am, along with my faith.
Wow. Yeah, so for you, what was it like? You went to college in California, so what was it like for you to stay close to home, go to California, play for California, and having your friends and family in attendance to watch your games still and while you played high school. But what was it? How special is that for you just to stay close to home?
It was cool because I had a lot of opportunities to go elsewhere. I was a parade All-American.
Yeah.
I think most people don't even know, right? I was like a top 5 offensive lineman and defensive lineman too.
Yeah.
So it was just a really awesome experience to have all these people kind of, getting recruited and trying to figure out where you want to go. And I actually ended up just taking one recruiting visit because I knew in my heart that I wanted to stay at home. And something that I also, thank my uncle for is like, well, if you know, there's no reason to be going to these other places and telling people you're going to go somewhere that you're really not. And so even being up front with integrity from that standpoint, another great life lesson that my uncle told me is no need to go around and get wined and dined if you've already made up your mind. And so going up to Cal, having my family, having my mom, right, I already told you that being low income, she wouldn't have been able to fly to Miami every week, right? It's not like today where you have these NIL and I would have been able to do it myself. So she'd have had to watch me on TV and say with the rest of my family. But being right there at Cal, I mean, most weekends I probably had 20, 30 people in the stands that was coming out to support me in what I was trying to do as a student athlete at the top university in the country, public university in Berkeley. So it was a great experience, got a great education. Had a great football experience past my first year. Most people won't remember I had Tom Homo. Great dude, great man. I think he's actually the athletic director up at BYU now. But as far as a football coach, we were 1-11. And so we didn't have the structure, we didn't have the vision or the discipline that we needed to win games. But we got Jeff Tefford, and really that next year we won 8-6. And then my senior year, we were top 5 in the country, and it really was just a great display of what culture, discipline, and togetherness looks like. Because we had the same talent for the most part, and we went from 1-11, like I think ranked 114 out of 115 D1 teams at the time, to top 5 in the country. So it was a great experience overall, and I got my degree while I was at it in legal studies, and so. Just a really cool experience. Got a lot of support. A lot of friends were able to participate and actually see it up front and close, which I think made a lot of great memories for me to look back on.
Well, speaking of top 5 offensive linemen and defense, and talk about what was the change like transition like switching to defense, and did you think that maybe you could play both positions, or I mean obviously not the same, but what made you change positions to linebacker?
So in high school, kind of going back there, I went to a small private school, so we had to play multiple positions. I think we had 25 guys on the team, 16 of us could really play. And so I played offensive, defensive line there in high school. My uncle was the O and D line coach, and so he made a point that he was going to have his hands on me as much as he could because I wanted to be a tight end. I thought I was big, athletic, just like most people today. Everybody wants to be catching the ball. Yeah. And doing something cute, right? And so he made sure I understood the game from the trenches. Went to Cal as a D tackle. Did well there. I underperformed, I think, in Cal just because from a maturity standpoint, I wasn't ready of what that really meant to say, hey, I want to play in the league, what that life looks like, the discipline, the intentionality that you need in order to be a top draft pick beyond just the talent. And so that's why I went undrafted. And, doing that undrafted process, it wasn't until I got to, where was I at? In Washington, where I was on practice squad there. And there in Washington, I kind of reverted back to my high school days where I literally took every single rep that you could possibly take in practice as a practice squad player. So offensive line, defensive line, all the special teams. And I had never done that, and I was with Carolina the year prior on their practice squad. Mm-hmm. And so it was really like a throwback moment for me. And so out of that kind of birthed this one-man gang. Fred Smoot and Sean Springs gave me that nickname because I was very versatile. And it ended up showing up in a game where I ended up playing like 5 different positions, and it was actually versus the New York Giants. Yeah. And so that is where kind of the beginning of the possibility of my transition to linebacker came from, or really started, because they saw that I could, come in and play guard. I was athletic, I could play defensive line. I was smart enough to handle all of the different, playbooks. And then I was running down on kickoffs on special teams. So when we got Mike Shanahan, I think he came in 2010, and we had brought in like that 3-4 Pittsburgh style defense, and I was a big defensive end. They said, "Hey man, you athletic, you running down in space. Let's move you to linebacker." And so that's kind of where it started, and got around some great guys. Once again, I had London Fletcher to help tutor me and mentor me in terms of what linebacker play looked like, keys, because that was something I never did. You know, most guys, when you have your hand in the dirt, you're looking right at that guy that's in front of you, maybe the adjacent lineman. Maybe you take a peek in the backfield before you put your hand in the dirt. But once you stand up, you see all of that constantly. And so I really had to learn how to train my eyes, see a little, so that I could then go through my progression and make plays. And that was probably the hardest thing, but fortunately I was around one of the best to ever do it, and hopefully London Fletcher, he deserves it, becomes a Hall of Famer here in the next couple of years. But again, that's who I was around. I was around a lot of great players, and that's how that transition started, and how it went. And then I just every single year try to work on something about my game, whether it was losing weight so I could be more efficient, right? Because when I played D tackle, I was 315.
Yeah.
So by the end of my career, I was about 240. And so either losing weight, working on hands, work with LeVar Arrington a lot in the off season. So I mean, I just had a lot of great people that were willing to work with me, teach me, take me under their wing, and help me become the person I needed to be to do the things I did.
Yeah, LeVar Arrington, that's my guy right there. He was actually on my old show. He was on our show, and then I ran into him again during Super Bowl week in New Orleans and caught him. Yeah, that's my guy. Right? He's one of the best to do it. And also London Fletcher, man, I hope he gets into the Hall of Fame. And like I said earlier, Lorenzo, you were that dog on the field. Whatever team you played for, especially the Bills, you made a big impact with the Buffalo Bills Mafia. And and that's where you had. I'm sure that. Let me ask you this. I'm going to put you on the spot. So, out of all the teams you played for, where did you like it the most and felt comfortable?
Everybody asks me that. I mean, it's obviously between Washington and Buffalo. Those are the places that I played the longest, and they're different for different reasons. I can never forget. I mean, I came on the scene in Washington. People forget that because I played, fortunately, a long time. And in between there, I got hurt, tore my Liz Frank. So people forget that I was a Pro Bowler in Washington, was actually coming into my own there. And then, obviously, with some cap stuff and a whole bunch of other business stuff, ended up leaving there. But Washington is where I got married. Washington is where I found Christ. Washington is where I started my family. Washington is where I got my opportunity to play. Washington is where I started developing into a man. And so I love Washington for that aspect because there's a ton of individuals, from my pastor to teammates to people in the community, that was a huge part of that. So I was able to be that dude that you saw in Buffalo. And so from a people standpoint, even though we didn't win a ton in Washington and the culture there was not ideal, I have always going to have a spot for Washington for what that community did for me and how it helped me build a great foundation to be a person that people could call a leader. So I love Washington for that. Now, in terms of football, yes, Buffalo and community, Buffalo is up there as well, because then I was at a different part of my career, right? I was older, more in that leadership role. I had served on the executive committee of the NFLPA. My kids were much older, right? I was seen as the uncle in the locker room, guys. Now I was the London Fletcher giving game to Matt Milano and Trey White and Tremaine Edmonds, right? I was that dude. And then also with Buffalo, it was more about family, right? Where if I had Tuesday off day, come in, get treatment, eat breakfast, I could bring my kids with me. Right. In the off season, they could come up there. My wife could go work out there. So there was a much more integration of my family to where they actually remember being in the locker room, going into the field house, hanging out, and really feeling like they were a part of it as well. That really made it cool. And then Bills Mafia, man, it's like, I mean, it's not too many fan bases. I don't know if there's any other one. There probably is that has a 30 for 30, right? obviously you see all the craziness and jumping through tables and the hot dog guy and all the mustard dude and all that. But like as a community, like Bill's Mafia is everywhere, and it's really like a mafia family where they really love on you, take you in, and that was really a great place to like do community work. Always had a lot of volunteers. People showed out and supported, unlike any other place I had ever been. So overall, when you look at all those things, I would say Buffalo. If I had to pick one, if you're gonna put me, put me in a spot like that, I'll say Buffalo. But Washington meant a lot. And then on top of Buffalo, we got to actually baptize guys. We had a great team chaplain that was a part of our culture as well. And to be able to mentor and disciple guys in the locker room freely was really cool. So, because that was life changing and really helped change families and the ripple effects that meant. So, Buffalo, for a lot of reasons, I would pick over any other place that I played.
Okay, have you jumped on the tables yet or not yet?
No, man. I can barely, fall on the ground without hurting myself, man. 42 after 15 years, man. I ain't going through no tables. I might hurt something for real then.
I don't know how Nate Burleson did it, but he did it. I don't know if you saw that. Nate Burleson jumped on the table.
More power to Nate. He was a receiver.
Yeah.
So he didn't touch people too often. He's more finesse. He's not soft, just finesse. You know what I mean? So cats that didn't really get hit or do a lot of hitting, they don't allow one. Let me get a little physical now. Cats that played the game and was hitting cats all the time, you don't want no more part of that now.
No. Well, yeah, but I want to get back to your college career because you had obviously a big impact in college. You won the Brick Mueller Award, and also you played in the first U.S. Army All-American game, ball game. So talk about those two achievements you did in college, and obviously both things are special, but let's talk about those two achievements.
Yeah, the high school game was dope. It was in Dallas. I remember it snowing. It was actually where the main thing that I remember outside of the game was that is where I found out I didn't get into Stanford because I was going to go to Stanford for college, and I had to figure out where I was going on our flight back, and so I ended up going to Cal. But that was probably the biggest time that I kind of remember about that game and what it meant. But it was really cool to be honored, right, to be out there with other high school cats. I want to say, what's my man's name? Is it Tommy? Not Tommy Kelly. That's TK. Man, Tommy. Man, it was another great D tackle. Went to Chicago Bears.
Oh, is it Tommy Harris?
Yeah, Tommy Harris, Oklahoma, right? Yeah. So he was like the epitome, right? I said I was top 5. He was hands down the number 1 defensive player in the country. And so to actually see these guys, because before, right, back then we didn't have IG or, all the Facebook stuff. We had, I think, MySpace, but it wasn't, video wasn't as ready as you could see guys and really size yourself up. So for me, he was really just a name in a magazine that was always above mine. And to be able to go there and meet guys of the same caliber of Tommy was really cool. To actually see it in person, actually get to meet them, get to talk to them, hang out for the week, compete against those guys, and really see other athletes across the country that were gifted, but just great people too. And then you kind of got to follow their career in college. And then obviously some of us got to play together or play against each other, which was a really cool experience because, you always want to have these measuring sticks to kind of confirm that you are who you think you are and that you're capable of doing the things that you have been doing, at least in your local community. And I think that's one of the cool things about AAU, which I think is obviously way too much, but to be able to go out and be able to compete against guys in other parts of the country is way more accessible now than it was when I was coming out. I think it's, they went all the way to the left with it, but to be able to do that was really cool because now you can say, oh, yeah, I belong. Okay, yeah, I belong. Oh, no, I need to work on my game. This dude is on another level, right? And you get these real-time feedbacks, and that was what that All-Star game was for me. And it was a really cool experience, and I got to play mainly offensive line in that game.
Oh, wow.
But it was cool. There was some other guys, man. There's another running back that went to Virginia Tech that played in the league for a little bit. Man, there's just so many names. I can't think of their names right now off top. He was fast too. He was like a 4.2 guy. Man,
What team did he play for?
he went to VTech. Who drafted him? I can't remember who drafted him, but it was just a lot of great athletes. I mean, it was probably 10 or 12 NFL players on that team, if not more. And it was just what you call it might have been there too. Benson from Texas. It was just a lot of great dudes. I mean, and guys that can play at a high level. So it was cool to be a part of that team and part of that experience. And it's really cool to see where the game has gone now. And then as far as college, right, the Community Service Award.
Yeah.
I think that's just always just been a part of who I am, and I love to serve. I can even see it in my kids now, especially my daughter Zoe. You know, anytime there's an opportunity, she's volunteering to do it. You know, whether it's cooking for a team dinner or going to pick somebody up, it's kind of ingrained in her DNA. And so I think she's obviously cut from her dad, just like I was cut from my mom and my Uncle Steve, as far as just serving and trying to meet where people at and filling that void that is needs to be filled in the community.
Yeah, I got some names here for you. I don't know if there's Kevin Jones or David.
There it is, Kevin Jones. Yep.
Kevin Jones.
Yep.
All right. Yeah. So talk. All right. I know you got to play in the NFC East and the AFC East. So talk about what was it like playing in those two divisions, playing against Eli Manning, playing against Tom Brady.
Cold is probably the first thing I would say. Cold, right? Especially when you got up to the AFC East, when you're playing in Buffalo and in New England in December. But it was great. You know, I mean, it's great to compete against the best. Obviously, Eli was never regarded as one of the best. I think it was more because obviously his brother and his demeanor. But I always had a lot of respect for what Eli was able to do, especially showing up in the big moments. You know, having the Super Bowls. I think he's one of the more underrated quarterbacks because of who's around him. But really enjoyed them. Those used to be some physical games. They had one of the best O-lines right there for a while and kind of set the tone of what it looks like to work together, right? Because if you broke those guys apart and put them on different teams, maybe they're not as good. But collectively, as a unit, that offensive line, you know, I think Sneed stood out. That's probably who I competed against the most. Just based on where I lined up, was just they were all dogs when they were playing together, really good football players. You know, the Dallas rivalries, playing against those guys. You know, I still give Dallas fans a hard time every time I see somebody wearing a Dallas shirt. Because I'm like, you ever been to Dallas? No, I ain't never been. You know, why is that America's team again? You know, y'all ain't won. You know, it's just all those little things, just trying to nitpick them a little bit. And so it's fun. And then Philly, you know, I got to play with a lot of those guys over there too. LaShawn McCoy, we were teammates in Buffalo. Yep. And then just a lot of great memories of me just growing up in the league, playing special teams, making plays, playing against the what do they call them? The Dream Team, right? When they had
Michael Vick
and that led by him. I think my man Nnamdi Asomugha was on that team as well. So it was really cool to see that aspect and being during that era. And then playing, you know, in Washington, playing with a guy like Sean Taylor, right?
Yeah, Sean, oh my God.
What happened there, but one of the greatest players and one of the best human beings that I've ever been around as well. And obviously his life was cut way too short due to that tragedy going home when he was injured and stuff, got murdered. And that was unfortunate, but it's really cool to see his legacy. His daughter, I think, is over at North Carolina playing volleyball. Right, real dominant. My wife knows her and her mom really well. So, still looking out, you know, for people like that because you know football really is family. Now that we're on the other side, get to kind of connect and see what people are doing. And then being up in the AFC East, you know, obviously it was ran by the Patriots the whole time that I was there. You know, trying to figure out ways to beat Tom and. I don't know. Did we beat him? I don't think we ever beat him when I was there. Maybe one game. I know we beat him one game when he didn't play. I'm trying to think, did we beat him at all? And I can't remember. But I got to sack Tom Brady a couple of times. I got an interception off of Tom Brady.
There you go.
You know, so the kids, you know, they don't know who I am. But I say, I sacked Tom Brady and got an interception. They're like, ooh, okay. So you know, I definitely get some credibility from doing that. But it was just really cool to compete against, again, one of the greats. And I used to try to tell people, I try to tell my kids this, because people like to Google people and, you know, get on their IG And I think a lot of times because of how cool and the success that Tom had, people were beat before they even stepped on the field.
Right.
Because they were looking at Tom and enamored by what he had done and what he was still doing. I'm like, well, the dude I'm competing against ain't Tom Brady. You know, the dude I'm lined up against ain't that dude. So let me beat him and impact Tom Brady that way. And so, that's one of the big messages now, because I have a lot of young kids that get stuck with the IG, man. Respect everyone, fear no one, right? And go out there and compete, because those dudes are human beings too. And if you can go out there and showcase your talent, you can beat a guy like Tom Brady by impacting him, by beating your matchup, right? But it was cool. We had a lot of fun. I used to suck going down to Miami if we got a September game down there. And then the Jets, that was always fun, because that was almost a win almost every time for the most part. I think they might have beaten us once or so. But the Jets is always cool to go and play New York as well. So it's good stuff, man. A lot of great teams, a lot of great history there. Playing with Rex Ryan that first year, too, was really cool and interesting. Being around that dude, he loves ball, loves his teammates, loves his players. And so I really thrived in his defense. I actually had the opportunity when I went to the Cardinals. I could have signed with the Jets. It was just too much, if you remember Rex when he was with the Jets and being on Hard Knocks, it was just a lot going on. And I didn't want to go from Washington, where there was a lot going on, to a lot going on. So maybe I would have busted on the scenes a little bit earlier as far as all those sacks. That's what he told me, at least. But yeah, it worked out well, and it was really cool to play for him. And a lot of those guys got to be around Ed Reed too, because he was on that staff that first year. So again, I've been around greatness. And I've had the opportunity, and I'm thankful I was aware enough to let me see what these dudes are doing that makes them different, and then be able to add it to my game.
Yeah, shout out, by the way, speaking of Michael Vick, shout out to Michael Vick. Now he's going to be coaching at Norfolk State as a head coach. And actually, speaking of Vick, I was with Michael Vick this weekend. We did a grand opening at the Shop Dynasty Sports in PA, and Michael Vick was there, Allen Iverson was there, McNabb and Deshaun Jackson was all there. So.
Okay, McNabb was out there. So, obviously I played with McNabb. D-Jack, obviously a Cal guy. I was going to mention his name too. But McNabb is actually the offensive coordinator at the high school my son is going to now.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah,
wow.
Out here in Phoenix and Brophy. So I see Donovan all the time. And so, again, that's one of those cool things. Competed against him, played with him, and now we're doing life together in a sense with our kids going to the same school. So I get to hang out with him. And his daughter is really dope. She just won her second state title in softball. So it's just really cool to see kids of guys I played with, their families, and they're thriving. So, yeah, that's dope, though.
Yeah. So I want to talk about what was it like being Sean Taylor's teammate throughout your career in Washington, and obviously one of the best to play, and unfortunate about what happened to him. And he was a legend in my opinion. But talk about what it was like being his teammate.
It was cool. Sean was quiet. I was a young guy, and I wasn't there quite long enough to get to know him intimately, and be one of his boys, because them cats. Santana, Clinton, all the Miami cats were really tight. But to be able to observe him up close and kind of be in his presence and kind of watch how he moved, you understood why he was the way he was on the field. I've never seen anyone, and I guess I have, but he might be the epitome of being somebody that's uberly talented, and his work ethic probably was better than his talent. And that says a lot about him, because his talent was off the charts. His work ethic and how he trained was off the charts too. So it used to be 100 degrees where at practice. He out there full pants, sleeves, sweatshirt, because he wanted to make everything hard. So when he showed up to the game, it was easy. He used to ride his bike to work. I started riding my bike to work. People were like, you ride your bike? I'm like, man, Sean Taylor doing it, right? Used to, jog to work sometimes. He would be in the steam room working out, doing lunges. He was always trying to get an advantage. And if you beat him in practice, the dude was so competitive, he was going to make sure that he got you again. You weren't going to have the last laugh in practice at any time. And you would go over and over and over until he got it right. And so I just really love that about his mentality. He didn't allow his talent to dictate how he was going to work. he understood that in order to have any type of longevity and to really leave a legacy and how to impact people was the way you worked, and people was going to follow the work and not the talent. And so it was really cool to see that. And I think that's why every guy really respected who he was, because most gifted dude, but he grinded harder than anybody else, and I think loved on his teammates as well, kind of watching that relationship. If you ever see or talk or hear Santana or Clinton talk about it, it was just a really cool dude. So it was definitely a blessing to be around him in that short period of time that I got to be his teammate. Very fortunate. I was a better dude and definitely a better football player for it.
Yeah, I'm cool. I'm cool with Santana Moss. He was actually on my old show. Actually, McNabb was on my old show also. That's how I made the connection with all of them. They're all great guys, and to be able to be connected with all of you guys it's truly amazing. And when I promoted this interview for you on Twitter, it's one of my friends who's a Giant fan. He made a comment about you. He said on Twitter, Lorenzo Alexander is an NFL stud. Played for a long time. Absolutely 100% leader. NFL is a man's league, and he said Lorenzo Alexander is a definition.
No,
What do
I
you think
appreciate
about
that. Yeah, that's dope. That's dope. It's cool to hear that about your career, because you really never know. Because nobody wants to go undrafted. Obviously, people want to play as long as I did, but I never was a starter or that superstar. But the way I played the game is something that, the effort, the attitude, something my uncle instilled in me. And so for people to recognize that is definitely a blessing, especially now that I'm done. And you can hear that people have a true appreciation of the way you attacked and played the game at the highest level. So definitely thank you for those comments.
Yeah. So before we get to your coaching in your youth camps, I want to get your reaction on Demar Hamlin. Obviously, he went through a lot last year, and everybody knows what happened. And now for him to be able to come back and play the game he loves, come back on the field, playing for the Buffalo Bills. Talk about his story, because his story is truly amazing, inspiring, and everybody should follow his story and his career, because this guy is unbelievable. And for him just to come back and just to play the game he loves again.
Yeah, I mean, it's really a blessing from God, that we have Demar, right? Literally died on the field, was it 2 seasons ago now, and for him to be able to make a full recovery and go out there and play at a high level. I think he started a lot of games last year because with the absence of Micah Hyde retired and Jordan went down to Miami, he had to step into that role and to go out there. Obviously, the physical standpoint to play the game is very hard to do, but from just the mentality and mindset of knowing where you have been, right, at your lowest moment on the field, and to now being back out there to get over that mental hurdle, right? Because most guys, if you have an ankle or a knee, that's hard enough, right, when it's not quite right. But not to know, because it was a normal hit, right? And so it's really amazing that he's been able to mentally, get over that, knowing that at any time, essentially, something like that could potentially happen again. Now, obviously, the chances of it being that perfect again won't happen probably, but mentally you just don't never know. And so that's probably been the most amazing thing about it. And then for him now to use his platform to inform people, educate people about cardiac arrest, AEDs, and making sure that every youth facility, a youth coach has one. I know once that happened, I was like, man, that's crazy, because you never know. As a coach, I'm out here at a park a lot of times working with kids and with my son's teams, and anything like that can happen at any time, and I don't have an AED present, and we know how time sensitive and urgent the matter is. And so as soon as that story kind of our tragedy happened and his recovery and he started promoting, I went out and actually bought 2 AEDs through the NFL's program. And so now if something like that happens, right, and God forbid it does, and hopefully it never happens, I should say, I'm prepared. And I know I got my league one. I got another league one, just because you just never know, and you hate to be like, damn, I wasn't prepared. So I think out of obviously his experience, tragic experience, there's been a lot of lives saved that we will never know about, but because he decided to use his platform, that somebody went out just like me and bought an AED, got trained in CPR, and ends up saving a young person or just anybody's life if they're ever in that situation like he was.
Yeah. And and like I said, truly amazing story, and he's a great player when he's on the field, and he makes a big impact for the Buffalo Bills and for you guys. And I'm going to transition from your career to coaching, and obviously you do a lot of defensive linemen and linebacker and fundamental training, and also you have a youth football program you do, and also I also found that you do the FCA. It says Jesus One. You do a lot of speaking too. So talk about the transition from your NFL career to help kids also, and then the youth and speaking too.
Yeah, just still trying to leverage my platform and the credibility that I have from what I did on the football field as obviously as a player, as a leader, and really trying to impact that next generation, because that's what allowed me to become that dude, and really trying to help athletes of all ages, because I also work with the NFL as a Legends community coordinator to help guys transition out of the league. Right, and it's a really hard thing to do because most people have played football their entire lives and don't realize that the soft skills that they developed from an accountability, discipline, work ethic, flexibility, leadership, right, being able to navigate hard things applies in every industry. You just have to learn how that specific institution works, right? And so the foundation or the purpose of, I guess, really why I give back or coach in a lot of ways is so that transition is smoother. Transition is always hard. Doing something new is always hard, but making sure that kids understand that playing football is just simulated adversity to bring out certain characteristics in you, good or bad, and let's see where you're at, and make sure that you become the best version of yourself so that you're the most impactful person, regardless if you're on the football field or if you're in corporate America or if you're leading a business, right? And so that's really what I'm trying to do. I actually had a training session the other day with D linemen and linebackers, and I'm asking them. I said a couple of them go to like Catholic schools. So one kid, I'm like, hey, so what's the fruit of the spirit? And so the kid rattles off the fruit of the spirit and what it is. And I said, okay, does all that apply to football? And so with most kids, they like, should I answer it or, trying to figure it out? I'm like, no, let me know. Does that apply? And I asked two different groups this. And then people are like, no, they don't all apply. I'm like, so which ones don't apply? They said love. Love doesn't apply. You gotta be ferocious out on the field. I said, okay, I get that. But you don't, so you telling me you don't love your teammate? Oh yeah, right. And so when you have those so I'm trying to help them understand that you can't be this. I'm loving over here, but I hate over here, right? You got to be one thing. It's really hard, especially in the football context. And I'm trying to change the mindset around this. It's really hard to play angry in a lot of ways. A lot of that comes from people's backgrounds and how they grew up, which is not ideal, which I wouldn't want for anybody's kid. I grew up in Oakland, so I know what that playing angry means and what the root of that is. But if I didn't grow up like that, it's really hard to muster that energy up. It's much easier, right, to go out there and play with love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, faithfulness to a game that I enjoy doing and the people I love around me. And if I can go and lead with that every single time, I can be consistent. I don't have to find something to be angry about. But I can go out there and play for the love and the joy, the blessing that God has given me to do this game and the people he's going to allow me to impact. That's real easy. That's light. I can do that every single time. I can find that, right? Because you go into these different experiences and going through these battles with other people around you. And I'm about to go out here and play hurt because I love my brother. I see him doing the same thing. And so those things are way easier, and it becomes bigger than yourself, right? And I think that just leads to better people, more impact, and just more impactful people that when you lead with the fruit of the spirit versus trying to come up with this angry thing of what we think football is. But do you got to go out there and be physical and violent with your hands? And those are certain things that you got to do. But the foundation of that is I'm doing this because I love this game. I love my teammates, and I'm about to go out here and honor God because I love him and play this game the way it's supposed to be played. It's not out of this angry type mentality. And so the kids were like, okay, it's different, but I get what you're saying. So doing things like that, coming at them with a different approach. And so you don't have to be these two different people, because guys also struggle with that. how do I turn that switch on and off? Some people can't turn it off, and it ends up leading to bad things off the field. And like, man, how could you do that? Well, because he had to become this persona in order to play the game, right? So really trying to create some continuity in their lives and understanding that those fruits of the spirit there really isn't any situation, any activity, or any tool or job or thing that you'll ever do where you won't use all or some of those things.
Yeah.
Right? And that'll help you navigate life much more easily. And when you transition, you can take those things. Okay, I'm just going to go and apply them over here now. And so that's what I'm trying to help people, really coaches, parents, and athletes learn this earlier, because most people don't play until they're 37. Most of us play until high school. And so when I'm 18 and I'm going to college, okay, how can I now use what I learned in football to be impactful in some other area of my life that I'm excited about?
Yeah, that's amazing. I commend you for that, man, Lorenzo. We help out with a lot of football camps also here in New Jersey, and actually we got one coming up with Tommy DeVito on June 28th.
Okay,
and it's great to see people or current players and former players continuing the camps and for the kids and then also this Friday we got something with Bobby Okereke from the Giants.
I know Bobby.
Yeah, so that flag football tournament this Friday. So in Jersey City, New Jersey. So we'll be doing that for the people, and it's just truly amazing how these kids have resources now to rely on you guys and learn from you guys. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So before I let you go, I got a couple of some rapid fire for you. You ready? Real quick.
All right, hit me.
Favorite stadium to play in?
Philly.
Favorite player watching now?
Ooh, man, Buda Baker.
Buda Baker. Favorite food?
Breakfast.
Breakfast?
If I gotta be more specific, pancakes.
Favorite pregame music?
This is great gospel music out there now. So like Lecrae, Bizzle, Andy Mineo, that whole genre. Linnell Grant is a new artist that's out. So like gospel hip hop.
Funniest teammate?
Fred Smoot.
Fred Smoot. Why?
The dude got jokes, man. If you ever hang out with Fred, it was the funniest dude. We sat in the corner together in Washington. Hilarious. He just make everybody is a potential victim for Fred. If something is wrong with you, he gonna point it out. And he just had a great delivery and a great laugh about him. A Southern cat from the SIP. So Fred Smoot.
Okay. What do you consider if the right opportunity comes for you? What do you consider, college or NFL coaching?
NFL.
NFL. All right. So before I let you go, I'm having Ricky Waters on the show June 16th, and
Nice.
Would you like to say anything to him? Leave a message for him when to bring up to him when he comes on June 16th.
Oh yeah, for sure. Hey Rick, man, big fan. Watched you growing up, especially when you was playing with the 49ers. Love the way you ran the rock, the way you played the game, man. Was inspiring as a young kid growing up in the Bay Area. Appreciate the way you live your life. Appreciate you played the game. Got to watch you a lot, and so thank you for who you are, man. You definitely made an impact in my life.
Well said, and there you have it, Lorenzo Alexander. Please go follow him on social media, on Instagram. Go check out his youth football camps. It's truly amazing what he does for the kids. Coaching, training, D lineman, linebacker, fundamental training, and he does a lot of speaking there. So please go check him out, Lorenzo. Thank you for joining the show. Welcome to the family, and great to connect with you. And truly one of the best linebackers I ever seen. And like I said, you were that dog on the field. So, but keep up the great work.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Keep up the great work, and looking forward to staying connected with you. And when you come to Jersey, man, let's connect, and then we can do some camps down here, and then I'll come visit you guys, and help out with your camps too.
All right, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
All right, bro.
Here we go.